بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. This is alhamdulillah the final weekend of Ramadan that we have before the Eid, and alhamdulillah we have a very large crowd. May Allah bless everyone here. And we are in this program for Ramadan titled The Path of Salvation. We're covering the 20 core virtues of Islam. Now there's more than 20, but we look at 20 particularly important virtues in this month of Ramadan. And although we're studying 20 virtues, in reality we're studying 21. And that is because tonight we're talking about two virtues that go hand in hand, and we count them as one. So when you mix them together, when you put them together, you have one virtue, but in reality they're two separate virtues. That is the virtue of Sidq and Ikhlas. Sidq and Ikhlas. What is Sidq? Sidq is truthfulness, and Ikhlas is sincerity. So the question is, why not discuss them individually? Why are we talking about them together? The reason why is because they are interrelated and we need them both at the same time, ideally. Now, according to Imam Abu al-Harith al-Muhasibi rahimahullah, he says that Ikhlas, sincerity, is in need of Sidq. It's in need of truthfulness, while truthfulness is not in need of anything. Because the reality of sincerity is intending Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone in all acts of worship, while Sidq is having presence of heart in truthfulness in the Ikhlas. This means that every Sadiq, every truthful person is Mukhlis, but not every Mukhlis is Sadiq. How so? Say a person comes into the masjid. There's people around, but as they utter the takbir and they have their niyyah is for the sake of Allah. They're not praying to show off, to make themselves look pious. They're completely sincere. They enter the salat with ikhlas. So they're sincere, but now their mind is wandering. They're thinking about work tomorrow. They're thinking about this and that. They're not showing off. It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but their mind and heart are wandering. They are in need of more sidq in the act of worship that they're already sincere in. This is why the ulama say that every sadiq is mukhlis, every truthful person is sincere, but not every sincere person is truthful, because maybe they suffer from inattentiveness. So when we put these two virtues together, let's give them a name. When you put ikhlas and sidq together, you have what we call congruency. This is a very important word. Congruency, to be congruent. What is congruency? Congruency is when the outward matches the inward. There's congruence between the two. There's no disparity between the inward and the outward. That is called congruence. So if the intentions are sincere inside, that's ikhlas. When outwardly there's focus and presence, truthfulness, there is now sidq. That together is called congruency. So let's look at sidq and ikhlas together and how we can build congruency. So how do we define sidq first and foremost? According to Imam Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari rahimahullah, sidq is very simply that the judgment or the thing that matches reality, right? It is matching reality, mutabiq lil waqi'. So when a person is speaking truthfully, what they say matches reality. Did you go to the store today? Yes. And they went to the store. So their statement matches the reality, which is that they did in fact go to the store. That's truthfulness in speech. But truthfulness or congruency like this is not just in what you say, it's also in what you do, it's also in the heart. So you have sidq bil lisan, the truthfulness of the tongue, where you speak about matters as they truly are. Then you have sidq in your heart, which is having a true resolve and focus. And then you have sidq in your actions, which you do them with love and energy and focus. Now the ulama talk about different types of sidq. They say that at the top there is sidq ma'allah. There's truthfulness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is seen when a person fulfills their covenants, when they have resolves that they fulfill, when they keep their commitments and they acknowledge their state with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is truthfulness with Allah ta'ala. Then there is sidq with others, where you tell the truth, where you fulfill promises, where you keep your commitments that you make to other people. Have you ever heard of the IBM Muslim? No one? We know the company, right? IBM. Well, the IBM Muslim, IBM is short for Insha'Allah Bukra Ma'alesh. IBM is, you know, when the person says to the child, they say, Baba, can I have ice cream? And they say, Insha'Allah. They say, no, I really want it. Why? Because the child hears Insha'Allah and understands it as maybe, I'm not going to say no, but maybe, but probably not. Right? So sidq with ourselves, sidq with others, is congruency, that what you say matches reality. So there's sidq with Allah, sidq with others and telling the truth, and there is sidq with ourselves, which is giving ourselves a very honest self-assessment, where we avoid ghurur, we avoid delusions, we avoid awham, illusions and fanciful ideas about ourselves, and when we reflect on our states sincerely. That, in a nutshell, is truthfulness in its various aspects. On Ikhlas, on the other hand, is singling out Allah Ta'ala for worship, even if the person is struggling and having presence of heart. They're not doing it for other than Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. They might have a wandering heart, but whatever they're doing is not dedicated to other than Allah. It's not for the sake of getting the praise and admiration of others or any of these things. It's for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So that ikhlas may be faulty or weak if it's lacking presence, but it's not corrupted due to the lack of sincerity. Now, Imam Junayd al-Baghdadi rahimahullah, he famously said that ikhlas is the secret between Allah and His servant, because shaitan is not able to peer into one's sincerity and try to corrupt it, nor are the angels able to assess the degree of sincerity and write it in their account of deeds. It is between Allah and the servant. Only Allah knows their level of sincerity. Sincerity also entails that we work to remove the hujub, or the veils that come between us and truthfulness and purity in our actions. What are these veils? The ulama mention a few of them. They say among the veils that you want to remove is the veil of seeing your good deeds and being amazed by them. MashaAllah, I prayed all these rak'ahs tonight at Taraweeh. I gave all this charity. MashaAllah, I am such a good Muslim. Right? To not be veiled by your actions where you're amazed by them. The key to this, to removing that veil, is to realize that the deeds that Allah gives you the ability to do are His gifts to you. So you focus on the ma'bud and not the ibadah itself. You do the ibadah properly, you have ikhlas in it, but the focus is recognizing that these are gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is focusing on the gift giver over the gift itself. Another veil to sincerity is the veil of seeking compensation for one's deeds. What do we mean by compensation? We mean aghrad. Aghrad, or ulterior motives, whether they are worldly or even otherworldly. I'm going to offer all these rak'ahs so that I can have a high spiritual state and be able to read people's minds. I'm going to do it for kashf. This is a gharad. This is on an ulterior motive, and that is it attacks the root of sincerity in the heart. Another veil is the veil of being deluded and thinking that your actions make you pious. right? These are veils to sincerity in one's actions. So when you put Sidq and Ikhlas together, what's the term we use? Congruency. Congruency when the inward and the outward are matching. That is congruency. So how then do we develop congruency? Well, the key to developing congruency is the same key to developing all of the other virtues we've been speaking about this Ramadan. And that is knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and knowing His awareness of our inner state and knowing in the depths of our souls that la nafi' wa la dar illallah, that there's no one who can bring benefit or cause harm except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person truly knows that in the depths of their soul, they will be aided towards congruency. Likewise, to develop congruency where the inward and the outward match, the ulama recommend that we ensure that we do righteous actions in the privacy of our home, away from the eyes of others, in equal amount or even more than the actions we do in public. So if you only recite Quran when you're in the masjid, that's good. But if you want to have a higher degree of sincerity, read just as much, if not more, in the privacy of your home when no one's watching. If you only pray sunnahs at the masjid, that's good. But try to pray sunnahs in extra rak'at at home when no one's around, in the same quantity and quality as you would if you're in public. So that way the inward and the outward are matching. You're not publicly pious and then you turn away from all of these things when you're by yourself relaxing at home. This is a way to develop that congruency. Another way is to work to develop your character where you are who you are without pretending to be someone you are not. So this is basically living with congruency in what we say and in how we treat others and how we live our life. Basically, a person who lives with congruency acts in direct accordance with their beliefs, their values, their mission, and their goals. They don't let the thoughts of others affect their approach to the way they live in the world according to their values. So to be congruent, a person has to understand what they stand for. I'm not going to hold to a value with friends and then sacrifice those values when I'm around coworkers. I'm not going to pretend to be something I am not just to get along with the crowd. If I know something is moral and haqq, it is haqq everywhere. I'm going to hold to that in private and in public. You hold to your values no matter where you are. So you have to understand what you stand for. And you have to set up your life so that you can act in line with those beliefs wherever you are. So how can you do that? Because that's really developing your own character, your strength of character. You have to remind yourself constantly of what your values are. What do I value? What do I see as the highest truth? Ingrain those values in your heart, publicly and privately. This shows you the importance of dhikr, because dhikr is essentially reminding yourself constantly of the ultimate values you hold to, right? This shows you the importance of learning and growing in your deen and reading the Quran repeatedly, because you keep, through that process, you keep emphasizing those higher values that you hold to. Another way is to make sure that you're not saying or doing things that you don't believe in. How many times does a person, as a Muslim, they hold certain values, but they feel pressured to water down those values in certain places? The ideal is that you don't say or do things you don't believe in. So if you don't believe something to be true, then don't go along with people who think it is true when you don't believe it's true. That doesn't mean you have to be aggressive with people. It just means you have to have a clear idea of what your values are and hold to those values in public and in private. And lastly, you have to basically live in alignment with who you want to be as a Muslim. If you want to be Muhammadi in your character, you cannot act Fir'auni in your character. You can't do this, because what will happen is you will know that you're not living in alignment with your values. You know what your values are, and if you're not living in alignment with them in the public eye, you're going to come to resent yourself and loathe yourself. Why? Because you're not congruent. A lot of that discomfort people find at work or at school or in public life is because they sense that they're not being totally congruent. Congruence is an incredibly important value, that you know what your values are, you know what your mission is in life, what your purpose is, and you try to live that privately and publicly, and don't act like those are not your values, right? That lack of congruence, the incongruence, will actually disturb the soul. You're not going to like yourself. You're not going to feel happy about the way you're acting with others if you are going along with the crowd and succumbing to peer pressure and saying and doing things you don't truly believe in. So when you do that in your life, you'll come to a greater sense of congruency, and that will help you develop your Sidq and your Ikhlas, so that you have inward sincerity and outward focus in living according to those values. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that Sidq and Ikhlas, Sidq with Allah, Sidq with ourselves, Sidq in every endeavor of our life, and give us congruency. This is one of the greater struggles that Muslims have, especially in this society where they feel pressured to go along with things or keep quiet or to pretend that they agree with things they don't really agree with. Know your values, stick to them, and be congruent where your values are not hidden away and you pretend that you don't have them. And this is how you build Ikhlas and Sidq. May Allah give those to us. Ameen. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.